Hi, everyone, and happy Tuesday. I hope that you all had a glorious Labor Day weekend, and thank you all for doing such awesome work on your discussion board posts from week 2. I know a lot of these topics have been difficult, right? They're difficult, they're heavy, and I appreciate you all for learning and accepting and going through the difficult parts of US history and the real history in order to make such thoughtful and such empathetic discussion board posts. Your initial posts and then your comments to one another have been extremely civil and accepting, and also, really using the material to dig deep about history and the events that we're talking about and how they are still visible in our current day society here in 2021. So I just wanted to say excellent job. Just a quick reminder to be sure that your 3 posts are coming from 3 separate questions, right? If you want to do more, you always can, but be sure your initial post and then your 2 responses on 3 different threads, and be sure that your responses are at least 5 sentences each, right? If you just agree with somebody, that's great, but we want to hear what you think. Okay, so that's just a little feedback for when we come back to discussion boards in week 4, but we are in week 3, and week 3, as you will see, is a little bit different because we will not have discussion boards or a quiz. Instead, you will have your first of what I call paper weeks. So you'll have 3 paper weeks. They're weeks 3, 6, and 8. And since this is 3, it's a new assignment. And so therefore, what I want to do is just take some time to explain the guidelines that I have for you and what this assignment is going to ask you to do. So before you go to write your paper, you have material for this week that you have not yet learned. And that is the content for week 3, which is the American Revolution. And I highly, highly, highly recommend reading through the PowerPoint with an open mind, because as you've kind of seen already, is that there's a lot more than what we commonly know. And this period of the Revolutionary period usually gets kind of generalized down to like rights, freedoms, and Thomas Jefferson. And it's so much more than that, right? We just didn't wake up one day and say, hey, let's have a civil war and leave our country, right? It was a slow burn. It was a few people. There's some specific reasons, most of them dealing with money and free trade. And when they are not happy about this, they begin to make certain cries about rights that is going to lead for the nation's elites to, write this thing called the Declaration. And even then, we are, I guess you could say, about 50% of people living in the colonies are on board for rebellion and a revolution to secede from their home country, right? So it's a lot more complicated than just one day we woke up and said America, right? So just be sure to go through the PowerPoint. And then also I give you a little bit on the war itself, and the way that we as colonists were able to win a civil war was 3 things. First, being on the defense, because you want to be on the defense in wars. 2, extending the British supply lines. And 3, getting help from the French, especially with their navy, because we did not have a navy. And so I give you a lot of the causes and some of the military. And for your, sorry, I have an itchy nose right now. For your question 3 on your paper, that is going to ask you about how this all happened, right? What was the cause of the American Revolution and how did we become the United States of America? Okay, so that is new material. Please go through that first. If you try to write your paper based on things you've heard or, watching The Patriot, it's just not going to be to the level that we needed to get using the content from this week. So what this week's paper looks like is there's 3 questions. Question 1 and 2 are from what we've already learned in weeks 1 and 2. Question 3 is the new material. And so when you go onto Brightspace under week 3, you will find the guidelines for the paper. And so I'm going to make myself little and put myself down in the corner here and show you the guidelines that I made. And so you will see here, week 3 paper, it is due Sunday, this upcoming Sunday, September 12th by midnight. And you will see I have lots of kind of, I guess you could say, explanation of what this assignment will entail. And so if you look at the questions, you have three. Okay, these are three separate questions. You don't need an introduction and you don't need a conclusion. They're three separate 500-word responses. So they're like discussion boards, just a lot longer, right? So if you've heard me saying like use evidence and analysis, well, now you're going to be doing it, but just in a much larger scale than a discussion board post. So you will have three questions, each 500 words, and each one is graded separately. So if you write 1,500 words for the first question and then 10 for the second and the second and the third will obviously not pass the assignment, right? So it's not an overall grade. Each question is worth 25 points. And then you get 25 points for organization. So make sure you're looking at each one individually and don't like poop out by the third one because you think, okay, I wrote enough. This is good. Each one is assessed separately. Okay, so the first question deals with Columbus, the first Thanksgiving, and slavery, right? Chattel slavery that we've been studying. And so I'm going to ask you something that many of you have alluded to in discussion boards is what is happening with these events? What is the commonality and why are they not fully taught? Okay, so first you're going to make an argument and then use evidence and analysis to support your argument. The second question is going to be from a first person perspective. So you're going to imagine that you live in England and you are a white male, because only white males are traveling freely at this time. And the king is going to ask you to go to his colonies, right? And travel around to the three regions and write a report entitled Life in the Colonies. So you are going to be a visitor, you're going to have observations, and you are going to tell the king what you saw in New England and in the Mid-Atlantic and in the South, and your commentary on things like race, class, gender, politics, economies, religion. And so be sure to write this in first person, right? I saw my journey, right? And even though it's in first person, don't forget to make an argument at the beginning that explains what you saw in general, right? What did this all mean to you? And are there differences? Are there similarities? How are they functioning, right? Your observations summarized into a nice little 3 to 4 sentence argument to kick off that response. And then for the third one, this is the new one. Why did the American Revolution happen, right? What are the causes driving this rebellion? And how did it lead to the creation of the United States? And so that's kind of new. And obviously, if you have content questions about that, let me know. And so in answering these questions, here's how I break down the grading. You need to make an argument, okay? The argument is not a topic sentence, right? You're not just repeating the prompt, you're answering that question, right? And when you answer that question, I would say between 3 and 4 sentences will suffice. I know a lot of teachers and professors might say a 1-sentence thesis. No, you can make it more than 1 sentence, right? I really want to know what you're thinking, right? Just like you did in discussion boards. Then use evidence, so examples and evidence from the lecture, and then explain and analyze that evidence in relation to your argument, just like you've been doing in discussion boards. And then please don't feel like you have to keep it a 5-paragraph essay. It can be 2 paragraphs, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 or 7, right? Just be sure that you're using paragraphs and not making it all one big clump, right? Because that's not fun to write. It's also not fun to read. Some last minute things are just be sure your paper's double spaced. It's easier for me to read. I'm not somebody who is a stickler for passive voice and things like that, but please make sure it's proofread and you eliminate typos and also have capitalization of proper nouns. Those are things that in a college paper should be done. And last but not least, make sure that it's submitted on time. If you can't get it in by Sunday at midnight, please get it in as soon as possible. It's 10% or 10 points per day deduction, but please allot yourself time. This is not as quick as discussion boards. It's a little bit lengthier and it shows me what you've learned over the past 3 weeks. So be sure that you are being aware that you can't start this Sunday night at 10 o'clock. You can, but it's not going to go as well. So be sure, to start it now and work through it. And also, if you have questions or want me to read rough drafts, please let me know. I can do that as well. And so with this larger paper, I don't want you to, get nervous because it's a larger assignment. It technically is 3 500-word essays, but it does ask you to dig a little deeper and do a little bit more lengthier historical analysis than the discussion boards. And so that's why those kind of set you up for what you're going to see here. So again, focus on making an argument. I think that's something that a lot of us might be scared to do, but think about the material and say something new, your original thought, what you think. And then if you have the evidence to back it up and explain and analyze that evidence, you should be good to go. Again, use paragraphs, proofread, make sure it's in on time. And if you have any questions, let me know. So that's what the paper looks like. I really hope that you all feel confident in going into this, since we have had a few assignments so far. And I hope that you are looking forward to getting this done and having, a paper week under your belt, because next week we go back to DBs and quizzes. So this is kind of the last new thing that you'll see in the class. All right, I hope that gives you a good explanation. If you have any other questions, let me know and get to it, and I will talk to you soon. All right, y'all, have a good one. Bye.